this one is a little bit more recent. It's from March of this year, which is around the time when one of the accused that we have indicted took part in or is accused to have taken part in. This is consistent with what we've been seeing, presumably or confirmed in our case, stolen vehicles using to ram through garage doors, multiple vehicles showing up, and then several individuals just running about the facility, making entry, and kind of this mayhem of collecting product and then quickly driving away several minutes after that. And as you'll see in this one, it's not just one part of the business that is impacted, it's the other roll-up door that another individual gets into and then drives into that one as well. And so in kind of looking at the bigger picture for these cases, and I know this is important to DA Schmidt, we really are, I apologize, to DA Vasquez, we really want to get to a better collaboration. And what we've done in bringing this together is we need community help, and that's why we're putting some of this out there. We've been working with area agencies. These aren't just impacting Multnomah County, they're impacting Clackamas County, Washington County, and adjacent counties in our area. So we're reaching out to the public to say, if you know these vehicles, if you know these individuals, if you've even received product from Facebook Marketplace or from a secondary, an online source of purchasing that's not retail, you could have bought product that is from one of these burglaries that is hugely impacting this community.
And are you guys going to send us copies of these separately?
Correct. Yes.
Yep.
Same, you want to put your, hold up there real quick. Sorry, we started a couple minutes early. You were pointing out the hoodie?
Yes, and to go on, this is a screenshot. So this is part of the case against Manuel Castro. As you can see in this one, there's a very distinct hoodie with the skull and kind of a bucket-style helmet on that. This case has been indicted, and he was arraigned yesterday. And I think it's important to note that there's a lot of businesses out there that may have been impacted where things are underreported or not reported at all. So part of this, too, is to come together to have more communication to see what we can solve. And burglary cases there's a lot of challenges, right? It's hard to identify people when they're obscuring their identity and they're all kind of in this generic clothing. So if you know somebody or you kind of recognize something that sticks out, that's the help that we're asking for. This is a picture of who is alleged to be Manuel Castro. He was also indicted this week. In his instance, or the charges against him that are pending right now, there are 3 marijuana businesses that were impacted all on March 24th. And in that instance, he's alleged to have used a stolen vehicle that was taken from a nonprofit farmer's market and used that as a battering ram. And at least one of the businesses, before tens of thousands of dollars worth of product were stolen, the police engaged, and then he was able to flee on that day. So there's a lot out there. There's a lot of people that are involved. I think the message has been clear from our office that we're not going to tolerate this behavior in our community. We're going to find you and we're going to prosecute you, and we would like the public's help in any information that we can tie individuals into this ring of people doing these bad acts, costing tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage to businesses, putting people out of work. It's not acceptable and it's not going to be tolerated. So I appreciate your time here today. Detective Stevens is here as well, so I don't know, Mike, if you would like to make any further statements.
You took all my thunder.
I took all of his thunder, and I apologize for the slip I had earlier as well. But no, seriously, I think there's a huge problem with impacting these businesses, and I think we've spoken about this too. This is a business, or these are businesses in our community that pay a lot of tax, that support a lot of important programs here. Whether that's drug treatment, whether that is funding for different things in our community, this is a huge collection of businesses that are important to our community, and we are going to take it seriously. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, let's turn it over to Nathan.
Or, yes, Nathan, sure.
And then Jesse's going to speak as well, and then we'll do Q&A.
Well, just briefly, everyone, thank you for being here today. And what I've said from the very beginning when I took office in January is that we're going in a different and new direction, and that's one that is going to be much more aggressive when it comes to these burglaries and this really what had been, rampant criminal behavior. And what we've seen in those videos and what we've seen in these cases are examples of how there are certain criminals out there that think that they can get away with these types of crimes with reckless abandon. And we're here to say we are going to come at you aggressively hard, and we are going to make sure that we're doing everything we can to partner with law enforcement, to partner with our industry partners, to make sure that we are taking on these individuals and holding every one of them that we can accountable. This is a situation where this is an industry that I think has been particularly hard hit, and it's one that I don't think has gotten the service it deserves. And this office, and I know that Portland Police are ready to step up and really make sure that these individuals and these businesses that are suffering from this criminal behavior get the service that they deserve, because they are pouring millions of dollars, tax dollars, into our community through their businesses, and they're suffering greatly from this. And I, for one, will not stand for that. And I see this happening to their industry, and I see it happening to a lot of different businesses around the Multnomah County area. And my office is ramping up and really kind of looking at all the different ways that we can prosecute these individuals and have an impact on this criminal behavior. So with that, I'll turn it over to our industry representative.
Jesse, would you say your name and spell it for these
Yeah.
folks as well?
Jesse Bonacue, Jesse Bonetecou. I'm the Executive Director of the Cannabis Industry Alliance of Oregon. We represent over 500 cannabis licenses in the state. Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here and thankful for this opportunity to talk to you all. These indictments mark a major step forward towards addressing the violent robberies that have shaken Oregon's cannabis industry for years. These crimes have been devastating, and not just financially, but emotionally, for cannabis licensees, employees, and the communities that have lived through them. On behalf of our members and the broader cannabis industry, I want to express our sincere gratitude to District Attorney Nathan Vasquez and the Multnomah County DA's office in general for standing up for cannabis businesses and treating these cases with the seriousness they deserve. These crimes have extended far beyond Portland, as they mentioned, so we also want to thank the OLCC and every law enforcement agency across the state that had a hand in contributing to these arrests. What we're seeing today is a result of tireless, coordinated work across jurisdictions to respond to a persistent and organized threat. And I want to acknowledge the actual cannabis licensees themselves. This community has been incredibly resilient. In the face of fear and frustration, they didn't retreat. They shared information, video, photos amongst themselves, and often went further, gathering information and video and evidence to try and help law enforcement. They supported one another when resources were scarce and urgency was lacking. They stepped up because they often felt like no one else would. And that's why today matters so much. For years, cannabis businesses in Portland haven't felt protected. They haven't felt prioritized, and the consequences have been real. Businesses have been destroyed, and in some cases, bankrupt and forced to close. Employees held at gunpoint, assaulted, and often left unemployed for months while businesses rebuilt. After the reports are filed and the glass is cleaned up, there's also that lasting trauma that doesn't go away. It's easy to count the value of whatever was stolen, but it's really much harder to account for this emotional damage. It is terrifying to have a gun shoved in your face, to suffer through this. It is traumatizing to the employees and business owners that suffer through this. I've spoken to licensees who haven't had a full night's sleep in months, constantly checking their video, every hour worrying about being targeted again, being worried about followed, and every robbery also drives away really good employees. Not because they don't want to be in the industry, because they don't feel safe being in the industry. And that's really tragic. And it's a cost that our community has borne for too long. All of which is to say, these indictments, along with the recent conviction of 2 serial armed robbers from 2023, feel like a real turning point. Together, they send a message that cannabis businesses are not being left behind. But we do know that the work isn't finished. There are still serious robberies and burglaries that remain. They ask for help, and so I please ask on behalf of our industry and our employees, if you know anything, please do reach out. And we hope that this level of diligent attention continues because every case matters and every business deserves. So let me just end on reiterating my deep appreciation and gratefulness to DA Nathan Vasquez for showing our industry that our safety matters, our stories matter, and that we're worthy of the same protection as every other business in this community. So with that, I do want to just say thank you guys, and anything we can do to help, don't hesitate to ask.
All right, anybody have questions?
Sure. So, I mean, we were all here when these dispensaries popped up in the neighborhood and people didn't want crime and they thought it was going to bring crime. What do you want to say to address that? Like, are they now, have you heard from members of the community? Like, does this make the neighborhoods even worse like they suspected? What would you want to say?
Well, I think it's not the way that people originally were concerned. The crime is that they are legitimate businesses that are being robbed and broken into, just like any other legitimate business. And this is having far-reaching effects, and this is not at all a byproduct of the cannabis dispensaries. This is a byproduct of criminal behavior that's out of control throughout the business community. This is something that, we recently did a huge burglary ring case that involved hundreds of other small businesses, few or none of which were in the cannabis industry. So overall, this is a community problem, and we're seeking to address a community problem that is particularly hurting this section of our business community.
You mentioned earlier, I don't know if this is a tongue or just an example, you mentioned Facebook Marketplace a bit ago. Are you tracking these products that are getting stolen, and are they making their way onto Facebook Marketplace? Are they making their way into the hands of minorities? Where are these, do you know where they're going?
This might be a good one for the detective.
Yeah, let our law enforcement.
Anything you say and spell your name?
Sure. Yeah, Acting Detective Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, Stevens, S-T-E-V-E-N-S. Actually, one of our big breaks in this case came from Deschutes County, in which some of that stolen product was indeed posted on social media, and we were able to track that back to a particular burglary that was done in Bend. Where is this going? That's a great question. It very well could be local sales from those who are stealing the product. It could be going across state lines. And that's what our continuing investigation will hopefully answer.
Given
I
every,
have a follow-up question on that.
Sure.
You mentioned previous retail crime busts. With previous retail crime, trying to crack down on those, you've had assistance from federal agencies like the FBI. Are they able to help you on this particular investigation because it is dealing with cannabis industry?
Well, I'll say that in our previous ones, those were driven by our local law enforcement. And while there have been opportunities where our federal counterparts have assisted in some degree, those investigations, just like this one, are driven by both our local law enforcement, with in this case being Portland Police, and then that partnership with those businesses. So here it's with the cannabis industry, and the other ones it was, we had a whole just range of businesses. The one that comes to mind is Artichoke Music, which was a small community business that really sold wonderful music equipment and put on tons of community shows. And it was that partnership with those type of businesses that really brought about those prosecutions. This is not a situation where we are in any way overly reliant or really that much reliant at all on the federal government.
budgets, every time we come to talk to you guys, are in the forefront. Do you have the budget, do you have the staff to fight this kind of stuff, or are you just shoveling water out of a sinking ship?
Well, of course, the budgets are difficult, and yes, my office did take a cut in this last budget cycle. However, for me, this has been a priority, is how do I support our community? How do I be as efficient as I can with our resources? And the way that I've decided to do that is through strategic prosecution. It is the most efficient way to really get after these criminals, and this is exactly the type of case that comes as a result of that strategic prosecution.
Is this the Retail Theft Task Force?
Nope, this is different. So Retail Theft Task Force is looking at individuals going after, kind of some of our variety of retailers that they'll come in typically during business hours, steal large quantities of product, and then run out. These are, late at night, smash and grabs where they're ramming cars through businesses. So different, and we're using strategic prosecution. I am developing out a particular new kind of aspect of that where we're focusing on burglaries that occur in our business community.
Is it different just because it's happening at night, or is it a different kind of rate? Like, I'm trying to understand why it's not being used as a
Sure.
task force.
I mean, there are certain crossovers, but it's a different, it's a whole different kind of method of operation. And so, when we're looking at these type of burglaries that are after hours, they're not engaged in stealing so much the everyday retail products like clothing, purses, perfumes, things like that. So it's a slightly different approach. They're different. They are different groups, although there is some crossover. So certainly we house those two task forces in the same unit of strategic prosecution because of that crossover. So we certainly work in tandem with them.
Given the product of what it is, are they not required to put it in the safe at night? Is it not, I don't know, so I'm asking you, I mean, would it not be locked, something that businesses should take ownership and locked up, or is that?
Well, I'll say, and I don't want to speak for the industry, and I'll certainly let our industry representatives speak about it. What I do know is that they go to great lengths to secure their facilities, immense lengths. And I've seen this where, particularly once they've been broken into, they double, triple down their efforts to secure their facilities. And but that's why you're seeing these vehicles are ramming through and breaking in. And so this is certainly not one where it's a lack of effort by the industry.
Jesse, did you want
Yeah,
to chime in?
Yeah, I had a question for Jesse.
I would say everything that DA Vasquez just said is correct. We are subject through OLCC licensing requirements to have very strict security features in place for us to function at all. You cannot get a license unless you meet these security requirements. But a determined person is a determined person, and they're going to do whatever they need to do to get to their goal. And so even in cases I've heard of where somebody has like a 750-pound safe, people just stolen the safe, right? So there is, we are subject to very strict security requirements, but determined people who are organized and coordinated are focused and are dedicated to trying to overcome that. They will find ways to get to it. You can't make an impervious thing. We're not banks, right? And even banks get robbed. So that's not really the paradigm or challenge. And our members have learned from these. That's part of the sharing. They shared information about how to strengthen their thing. But I think it was a case in Eugene, very similar style, where people put basically big cement planters or otherwise things to prevent people from ramming it, and they just got there and they moved those and then they rammed through. So, the security piece is, we are doing our best, but there's only so much you can do. And a lot of what this is based around is creating a paradigm where there is time, so that to try and make it harder for them to get the product and do it in a timely fashion so that police have a chance to show up and potentially capture them. So it's about building those layers to stall and slow down people from robbing everything. But I think in the very first video you saw, that car went all the way through, and not only did it destroy the outdoor, it destroyed an interior wall as well in that facility. So they're pretty aggressive with this.
To kind of ask a devil's advocate question, you mentioned banks get stolen every now and then. Banks are insured. Other stores are insured. Is there insurance for these kind of businesses? And if so, do they offer any kind of financial support?
So this is one of the things that's so damaging to us. DA Vasquez pointed out that we are not the only ones who get robbed. However, due to our federal status as a Schedule I narcotic, normal banking services are not available to us. So we have to deal with a lot more cash. Insurance is not available to our members in the same way it is to everybody else. So there is some level of insurance available, but it's not the insurance that a normal business would experience or have access to. It's generally incomplete and doesn't cover the full costs. And then because we have some of those strict security requirements, when you, let's say your door is broken in, that might prevent you from opening until you get that fixed because of OLCC, Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission regulations. So your business, even if we were a 7-Eleven, maybe we could open with some broken windows up or some plywood on, but for us that is not allowed. So we have to generally shut down that location or facility until the damage is totally repaired, and that can take months. I know of one business that was closed for 9 months just repairing, and all of those employees are out. And then they generally lose employees during that time frame, and not to mention they're paying rent or mortgage or anything else on that property during this whole time. So in general, one of the best things that could happen is if the feds took reasonable, rational action, legalized cannabis, and at the bare minimum enabled us to have banking. And Senator Merkley is a champion for the Safe Banking Act, or the Safer Banking Act now, which is a banking reform bill federally, and we would love to see that move as soon as possible because it could help reduce some of the reasons why this is so damaging to us. All of which is to say, even though we are in the same place as many other retailers, these types of crimes affect our members much more significantly than a regular business would. And one of the most shocking pieces about it is none of the things I just mentioned are deductible on your taxes. So I know of somebody who was robbed about $250,000. They had to pay taxes on that $250,000. It's not deductible. So these types of crimes cost a severe amount of money. I would also like to say, though, I mentioned it earlier, but I want to be clear. Whenever I talk to my members who've gotten robbed or people in the industry get robbed, the thing that they say more than the cost of the business is the cost and trauma that they see it affecting their employees. That is the thing that affects them the most and is the hardest for the business to deal with. You can always hire somebody to replace a window, but losing a great employee or dealing with an employee in tears, terrified, and suffering trauma is a whole other cost that you really just can't put a number on.
When we see these videos, we're seeing people doing this at night, that's what you had mentioned as well, but you're talking about people getting guns pointed at them and things like that, so are these also situations that are happening? And then you mentioned cash business. Is there any indication that the cash aspect is what's driving these?
I would have to defer a little bit because there is lots of cases. I can say yes, there are people who have been suffered from armed robberies, absolutely, and in Portland. That is not, in my understanding, part of this case at the moment, but those cases do exist in the Portland metro area.
And I'm happy to talk a little bit about that. So yes, the cash nature of the business certainly is a factor. And I know that this business would love to see that change. However, I always want to make sure that we keep our eye on the focus, which is this is criminal behavior. These are victims. Even whether they're being reimbursed by insurance, which oftentimes that means their insurance rates go through the roof, and then we see them not even being able to make claims on insurance. The bottom line, the end, is that these are brazen criminals doing outrageous criminal acts, and they need to be held accountable.
So how many of the instances were large amounts of cash taken from a business? Is that a common thing? Is that an outlier? And then in how many of the cases, again, was it an employee there and it was an armed robbery? Is that an outlier as well?
So when we're talking about this particular instance, we're talking about approximately 25 instances that we know of now. We believe there's actually a lot more than that. Most of these were product because they were after hours. The businesses go to great lengths to try to secure their facility, their cash, all of their product. But these ones were primarily product. Now, over the spectrum of these that we see in this particular office, certainly we see a fair amount of robberies that involve cash, and those are during business hours. What the exact number is, I don't have that right now, but we can certainly look into that. Yeah.
I remember back in March, I spoke with Jesse at the time that the OLCC had put out a bulletin talking about these armed robberies, specifically also talking about how they targeted not just dispensaries but producers of these things. And forgive me because I should have a little later, but are you also looking at that issue, and what have you seen improvement since then?
The improvement that I've seen is, in particular, the coordination, right? It's coordination between industry, the district attorney's office, with law enforcement. If there are producers that are here locally, certainly we would work with them. Oftentimes when we talk about statewide, is there an opportunity for better collaboration? Absolutely.
Sorry, I came in a little late and you already touched on this, but I believe there was another robbery at a cannabis store here in Portland overnight where an employee got assaulted. We've been told no connection to this ring, but are there other potential rings you're looking into as well, or other groups that are doing this kind of thing?
Yeah, I would say that we are always actively investigating each one of these that we can get at, and this is going to be a growing effort where whether it's these burglaries, whether it's robberies, I have specifically dedicated resources towards both of those types of criminal behavior. You know, we've instituted a strategic prosecution around robberies, and we've instituted one around burglary. So we're going to be looking at, and they're in the same unit, so for crossover, they will work together.
Can I give you a chance to give a promo pitch to buy from the local stores and not from somebody off Facebook Marketplace?
Of
prevent
course.
the secondary?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think for this community, I know folks are really always concerned about buying locally and legitimately, and this is a great example of why it is so important to buy from legitimate, local, licensed businesses for a host of reasons. But first and foremost is that is, you're supporting these local businesses, which then in turn put tax money back into our community for our school funds, for mental health treatment, for drug treatment. And so by doing that, you are not only supporting a local business, you're supporting your community, and you're also, by not buying from those other ones, and when you're not, you're avoiding being a part of this criminal behavior.
The revenue that does come from taxes, do you have any indication of how much loss there is there from?
That'd be an industry question for me.
I do not. I mean, I believe that from one of the sources of taxes, which is the 3% that Portland gets to charge, it's about $6 million a year in tax revenue from cannabis businesses. I could be off by $1 million or so, but that's about what our members drive. And there's over 250 businesses, cannabis businesses in Portland, and those folks represent several thousand employees. And generally speaking. So it is a vibrant industry. It is a large sector of the economy, and please do visit our members and visit the industry to support them. Because the other thing about this, I mentioned that we are Schedule I and we don't have access to traditional banking. That means that most of these businesses are built on people's personal savings. It is people's 401ks that they cashed out. It is family, friends. It is your personal connections with a little bit of money. Most of these businesses are Oregon-based, Oregon-owned, and really built from scratch by people fighting every day to make this work, because that was the only way they had to do it. So if you care about your community, please do keep shopping at legal cannabis businesses.
With the 25 in this case,
Mm-hmm.
how much total product loss is there in a dollar amount, do we know? Because then you can estimate the tax, right?
I don't think I even can. One business alone lost about $100,000 in product in one burglary. I've seen other losses up to $20,000, $50,000 in one burglary. So combine that with 25, I mean, you're getting up there.
You mentioned different indictments that have already happened. Can you go over those arrests and how many more you expect just from this round?
Just briefly, I mean, in the past, we had the prior burglary ring where I think we got up to 5 or 6 individuals, and we're still always looking to go after more on that one. In this particular one, so far, we're at 2, but we've seen indications that there are 10 or more individuals involved, and we're going to continue to go after each and every one. And the more cases we can make, the better. So, I mean, this is one where we are not satisfied by just making a 1 or 2 here and there arrest. We're looking to get as many people as we possibly can.
How much connection are you seeing between these various theft acts? Like, as you're arresting one person and prosecuting, are you getting more information? Is this leading to more, or are these separate groups for the most part?
They are separate groups, but what we see is that with each one that we get into and we start prosecuting, we learn more and more, and we get more and more individuals. So, you know, this is something that I'm very optimistic about, that we are going to continue to grow this area of prosecution and see good results.
You mentioned earlier that people's livelihoods, like their savings, are being put into these businesses, and in fact, the insurance doesn't help them. What is your message to these business owners that are struggling and are on financial risk right now? What's your message to them, saying that, hey, we're here to help, and we're going to make you right, and we're going to see that justice is done?
Yeah, I mean, it's been plain and clear, which is they are valued members of this community. They are providing a legal business which provides a valuable tax base to our community, and we're here to provide and to serve. That's what the very basis and core of this office is to serve the public and to serve our community. And they are a valued member of this community, and we are here to serve.
Jesse, maybe you know the answer to this, or maybe somebody else knows. Are there any stats that indicate whether or not these types of
much better?
No, stats-wise. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if that particular stat has been compiled to date. I mean, it's an interesting one worth looking at. And, certainly I hope as we develop out our strategic prosecution, we're able to start to dig at those numbers, because my goal is to focus resources where crime is hitting us the hardest and then going after that.
Let's talk about the crime specifically. When it comes to, because there are 25 separate instances, can't speak today. There are 25 separate incidents. What does the average response time look like for those instances? Are they more than 5 minutes? Because I've talked to business owners who had 25-minute response times, and quite frankly, that's not acceptable. What are the average response times that you're seeing?
Yeah, I'll leave that to my law enforcement partners. I'll say that response times have been certainly an issue that we've talked a lot about, and I know that they're working hard on to improve. But what the specific ones were for each one, I can't say. What I can tell you is that my office is looking at trying to get at this larger problem as well.
We also want to clarify, by the way, that the videos that we showed you are local stores. They don't all want their names used, but they're not necessarily tied to the 2 people that we showed you at the end that are indicted, right? But the investigators are looking at them to see if the same crew is connected.
Yeah, and what we've seen is that once we've begun to actively get ourselves involved in making sure these are prosecuted, we've seen, I think, businesses start to really feel like they're supported and they're coming out and they're ready to step forward and have their those cases where they've been victims prosecuted, and we're here to do that.
With the retail theft task force and statewide, some of the stuff that's been done has looked at changing Oregon laws a little bit to allow for prosecution statewide when there are rings that are going statewide. Is there any indication that this could fall under some of those?
Certainly. I mean, we're going to use every opportunity we can in the law to prosecute individuals. If they are doing it in an organized fashion and there's a gap in the law, we'll even go to the state legislature and see if we can find an improvement there. So it is one where we're always going to look for those opportunities.
But is there any indication that it is a statewide type ring that's going on here?
I think we are certainly getting those indications. Like this one alone shows that we had some indications that there were events in Deschutes County and here. There's certainly, I know Jackson County has had their struggles as well, and so we're trying to work kind of cross-jurisdictional to get at this as much as we can.
And as you're prosecuting, are you using those extra penalties when it's statewide retail theft?
If we can, yes, we will. All right.
Anybody else?
All right.
Gone. Thanks, you guys. Just can we get your name and spelling? I don't think we got it.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
Yep. DDA Cody Linderholm. It's CODYLINDERHOLM.
And your title?
I'm our auto theft task force prosecutor.
And
Deputy District Attorney.
And just confirm, you will be sending us those raw videos that you showed us earlier to our emails and stuff like that?
Plus a couple of bonus pictures.
There you go. What time do you expect those emails to come out?
You should have them by 11.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
The specifics on the case are all in the email.
Okay, so we need to
I was just in that room.